Before Steve lived in the big city, he grew up in a small village. Life was simple there, and everyone knew each other. Steve had a half-brother named Ken and a best friend called John. These three were so close that their union was envied by their peers. Even though Ken and Steve had different mothers, they were very close. These three played together every day and shared everything. Steve was like a big brother to Ken. He always looked out for him and helped him with anything he needed. Ken admired Steve and wanted to be just like him. Steve's father worked very hard to take care of the family. He taught Steve the value of hard work and honesty. Steve learned these lessons well and carried them with him as he grew up. When Steve was old enough, he decided to move to the big city, Lagos, to find better opportunities. It was a hard decision, but he knew it was the right thing to do for his future. When Steve first arrived in Lagos, he was amazed by the tall buildings and busy streets. But life in the big city was not easy, and Steve soon faced many challenges. His first point of call was his brother Ken and his best friend John. He called to let them know he had arrived in Lagos and promised to bring them over once he settled. He was that conscious of friendship and brotherhood. Steve walked all over the city looking for a job. He knocked on many doors and talked to many people, but no one was willing to give him a chance. Without a job, Steve had no money and no place to stay. He slept on park benches and sometimes went days without eating. Life was very hard, but Kola did not give up. One day, Steve found a small eatery in a busy part of the city. The owner, a kind woman named Abigail, saw how hungry and tired Steve looked. She decided to help him. Abigail gave Steve a plate of food and told him he could come back if he needed more. Steve was very grateful. He promised to pay her back as soon as he could. Steve worked any job he could find, no matter how hard or dirty. He saved every bit of money he earned, determined to repay Abigail and improve his life. Steve kept his promise and paid Ada back for the food. They started talking more and became good friends. Abigail admired Steve's hard work and determination. As time passed, Steve and Abigail grew closer. They spent a lot of time together, and their friendship blossomed into love. Even after they got married, Steve struggled to find a stable job. He became frustrated and worried about how he would support his family. One day, Steve had an idea. He decided to go into farming, something he knew well from his village days. It was a risky decision, but he felt it was his best chance. Steve and Abigail worked hard on a small piece of land they managed to rent. They planted seeds, watered the crops, and took care of the plants together. It was tough, but they did not give up. Their hard work paid off. The farm started to thrive, and they were able to harvest and sell their produce at the market. Steve's business began to grow, and their life improved. Steve felt proud of what they had achieved. He talked to Abigail about his success and his plans to expand the business. They dreamed of an even better future. Steve also told Abigail of his intention to source for foreign partners who will invest financially into their business there by expanding it. And also, the need for more hands since the work was getting bigger. He decided it was time to help his half-brother, Ken, just as he had been helped. He picked off his phone and called him, inviting Ken to come to Lagos and join the business. When Ken arrived in Lagos, Steve was there to greet him with a big smile and open arms. It was a joyful reunion, and Steve was excited to have his brother by his side. Steve introduced Ken to Abigail and the children. They welcomed him warmly, and the children were especially excited to meet their uncle. Ken felt at home right away. Steve took Ken on a tour of the farm, showing him the crops and explaining how everything worked. Ken was eager to learn and asked many questions.
Confusely. How could my brother do this to me? My blood, my only brother. I carried him like a bag of rice, while he held me like a pinch of salt. Ken, how could you do this to me? My only source of livelihood, our source of livelihood. All I did was try to make ends meet. All I did was try to make the family proud. I brought you in just to help you, Ken. How could you do this to me? How could you? Can you ruin my life? I hate you. I hate you. Hey, bro, I'm sorry. It was the work of the devil. I'm sorry. Ken, you have to leave my house and you have to do that immediately. Leave, go away and never come back again. I hate you. I hate you. All what Steve struggled to build in years came crumbling within the twinkle of an eye. Ken packed his bags and left in regret as the gangsters never gave him what they promised they would. He sold his brother's trust for peanuts, which he ended up not even getting. Mr. Hillary White waited patiently and Steve was not forthcoming. He knew something had gone wrong, so he decided to involve the police. He threatened to arrest Steve and seize everything he had under his name until he gets back all his money. Steve, in a state of dilemma, remembered his best friend, John, his childhood friend. He met up with John and pleaded that he transfers the documents of his house under John's name until when the case dies down, then he will come back and get it. John accepted with all pleasure. Steve handed over his house documents to John and moved down to the village with his family, pending when the situation dies down. Steve and his family went back to the village and began managing, hoping that they would soon go back and recommence their life in the city when everything must have died down. Abigail and his beautiful kids, who were not used to village life, had to adapt because that was meant to be their life for that moment. After some time, Steve decided to go back to join his friend to recover his house, only to be met with the shock of his life. Another betrayal this time around. John refused vehemently to hand over the documents of the house back to Steve. In his words, he said, "My brother, how do you think I would be a fool to return these documents to you after having lived in a mansion like this? No way, that's not me. I'm sorry, but I have to do what I have to do." Steve died and came back that very moment. This was too much of a shock for him to bear. They fought over the documents, yet John refused to hand them over to him. And remember, at law, possession is the 9th arm of the law. At that point, John was stronger than Steve. He had to let go. Steve came back to the village with his heart shattered into pieces. His brother, his blood, had dealt with him, and now his best friend, his childhood friend, then he advised himself never to trust him. Not again. Began doing menial jobs in the village, ranging from working in people's farms and other menial jobs, just to make ends meet. Abigail, his wife, and their lovely kids began to sell some foodstuff in the market. One fateful evening, as Steve sat in his compound, he saw some gentlemen approach him. "Are you Mr. Steve?" He said, "Yes, I am." "We have good news for you, sir. The gangsters who made away with the documents of your company have been apprehended and your documents retrieved." "Oh my God, this can't be true. This can't be true. Oh my God, Abigail, come. Where are the kids? Come. God has finally vindicated us." Steve and his family leaped for joy. Their life was going to get back to normal. Steve recovered his multi-million-dollar company, and with that he had enough money to file a petition against his friend John. He recovered his mansion as well, and once again they became a happy family. Thank you for watching Betrayal in West Africa. Please like, subscribe, and share my YouTube channel. Bye-bye.